any of the institutes, maybe surveyors, engineering, architects, any reps from any of the, yes, I see a hand there. Let's appreciate him as well. Thank you very much. I hope I haven't left out any. Let's come to the academia. Any reps from the University of Ghana, other institutions here present? Okay, quite a number. Let's appreciate them, please. Thank you very much. I want to believe I haven't left out any group. Have I? It's a workshop, so we are allowed to relax and interact. So I haven't left out any group. Thank you very much. Consultants, please. Very, very important. Let's appreciate consultants in the house. Thank you very much. Without them, we'll make a lot of mistakes. So we need them always to be around. All right. I think it's a good time for us to start off with an opening prayer. And to help us do that, a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, Dr. Teddy Osei Kwachi, will give us the opening prayer. Shall we appreciate him as he comes forward?
Shall we pray? Father, we thank you for this morning. We thank you for an opportunity to gather here to discuss about the program that will bring development to this country. We ask that you come and lead us, you direct us, let everything that we are going to do here be successful. And at the end, we will give you the glory. We begin in your name, and we thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you very much. I think he was my lecturer. He was. If you pass, you make your A's and maybe A minus and B plus. You are confident when you're introducing your lecturer. Otherwise, when you see him, you would, I don't know him. Because all right, ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to have two industry giants to be our chairpersons for this occasion. And I would want to create your indulgence as we welcome our chairperson. So our first chairperson is, I'm sure you are familiar with the CH group. We have the likes of Gold Key Properties, we have Denton, we have Chase Petroleum under that group. And she is, in the simplest of descriptions, when it comes to negotiations, deal evaluation, procurement, developing startups. That's her forte. She's a strong woman in that field. And I'm honored to say that the CH Group's Chief Operating Officer is one of our chairpersons. If you're excited as I am, let's put our hands together for Madam Cynthia Akwe. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. I'll be introducing the second chairperson, and they'll both come and share a few words with us. Our second chairperson also leads one of the leading brands when it comes to real estate, housing development, land development. The company is PS Global. I'm sure you're familiar with it. And not just that, he's the president of the Ghana Real Estate Developers Association, the GREDA president. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Patrick Ebobonfo is our second chairperson. Since we have a gender balance, let's welcome our chairpersons here to give us some remarks, and I'll take over from there. So ladies first is fair. So let's welcome Madam Cynthia. Let's appreciate our chairperson.
Good morning. The Dean of the University of Ghana Business, professors, lecturers, students, guest speakers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. As a proud alumnus of this great university, it's an honor to have been asked to co-chair this important real estate stakeholder workshop for the University of Ghana Business School. 20 years ago, when I began my career in real estate, there was nothing within the curriculum of our tertiary institutions and graduate programs in Ghana that could afford me the technical and professional assistance that I needed for growth. Most of my academic studies, as well as executive training in real estate, was acquired in other countries who have more matured markets, along with programs that cover the breadth of skills one needed to excel in the business of real estate. Unsurprisingly, a significant portion of the curricula in those institutions tend to be country and continent specific. This means that there's a disconnect between these programs, no matter how outstanding they are. In the Ghanaian industry, there's a disconnect between these programs and the Ghanaian industry with its own peculiar challenges. This new master's program that University of Ghana Business School seeks to start will fill a wide gap in the industry, and to call it a laudable initiative would be an understatement. We can all agree on the importance of real estate and its impact on national development. Families need homes, organizations need office space to work, retail firms need a store to sell from, industrial firms need warehouses and manufacturing space, students need schools, we all need hospitals and other essential buildings to protect us from the elements and service our needs. The industry creates employment for many, allows corporations to work, earn profits, and contribute their quota to the tax net of the country. So a vibrant real estate sector, one that not only develops real estate, but that focuses on production of construction raw materials, has huge potential to improve the performance of our currency against the major trading currencies of this world, with the inflows from the export of these materials. Additionally, it can provide a steady stream of income, roping in the informal sector through its skilled labor into the real estate industry, would significantly widen the tax net and raise more domestic revenue for our economy. Again, real estate done right, with the right returns on investment, can put Ghana on the map as a destination to visit, to invest in, and to operate or work from, attracting foreign direct investment. For the purposes of this workshop, real estate can be defined as land and the buildings occupying that land, commonly referred to as property. We sometimes simplify it further by categorizing it into commercial and residential real estate and ignore the multiple segments under each, all of which have different target markets. I will group the real estate system into 3 elements today, and I believe that if these elements are thoroughly exhausted by the university, the guide needed on the best curriculum to adapt for the real estate program may be addressed. The first element is the space market, basically the market for occupancy and usage of built space. The second element is the asset market, which is the market for the ownership of real estate assets. The third element, and probably the most well-known in Ghana, is the development market. This is the industry that builds new physical assets. It basically converts financial capital into physical capital. This element is also the part of the system that has the most impact on the nature and quality of built environment. The relationship between the 3 elements is that once completed, a development project would have produced a new building, that is a new built space. It is worthy to note that the development industry looks at the value of these built properties on the asset market and compares this value to the cost of developing new buildings, cost which may include the cost of our land and construction, as well as the developer's profit. Running through these elements covers the entire spectrum of real estate, in my opinion. Our industry is multidisciplinary and requires a significant amount of manpower. To invest in the right asset, operate successfully in the space market, or succeed in the development industry, you need the support of, in no particular order, policymakers, regulators, surveyors, land economists, urban planners, architects, structural engineers, MEP engineers, HSC engineers, quantity surveyors, security administrators, procurement specialists, tax consultants, bankers, brokers, town and country planning, advertising agencies, research analysts, cleaners, contractors, and property managers. This industry, like many others, is fast changing. The global nature of capital flows, the internet revolution, corporate governance, and the commoditization of information are just a few of the dynamics increasing the pace and complexity of our industry. and Ghana has its own share of challenges. From policy to deal evaluation, land acquisition, procurement, funding, project management, to completion of projects, sale or rental, management of properties, there are obstacles along the entire route. My hope is that by listing some of these challenges, the right curriculum and training can be introduced to help address them. One challenge is the Ghanaian real estate philosophy is not entirely futuristic, but it should be. Typically, a well-meaning Ghanaian comes into money and then decides to put up a building, either for personal use or for rent. The considerations that go into the building usually only take surface level present factors into account. In 2008, when I led the master planning of Cantonment City, a 62,000 square meter mixed-use project in Cantonment, developed and operated by Gold Key Properties. The location had been classified as purely residential by the town and country planning, and this was based on a master plan dating as far back as into the 1950s. It took 2 years to sell the idea of a mixed-use concept to the regulatory bodies involved before approval was given. Today, Cantonment City has won many local and international awards and remains arguably the most successful restoration the city of Accra has experienced under one single developer. For this reason, a course in urbanism and planning sites should be part of this real estate program, which will assess value of land, maximizing land and building into the future. One of the characteristics of a mature real estate investment market is that significant, reliable, and accurate empirical data is available for investors to use in decision making. A program that encourages data collection and a study of real estate media and marketing, as well as the study of real estate products to identify segments, target markets, monitor trends, determine the future needs of a nation's population, and support in commercial analysis of a real estate venture will be critical. Another industry challenge rests in our policies and regulations. These cover issues of land administration, acquisition, land use policy, land tenure, including the famous Rent Act, just to name a few. The Rent Act, for example, 1963 Act 220, makes tenancy risky for the landlord and expensive for the tenant. The difficulty or near impossibility of evicting tenants is a challenge for most real estate developers, who often decide to stay away from affordable housing sector or decide on the alternative, which is to price the risk, thereby making the rent expensive for the tenant. Hence, one of the reasons why, in my view, the housing deficit remains a challenge. The global effect is that policies and regulations, or lack thereof, discourage private sector participation and foreign direct investment. To address the housing deficit in Ghana, private sector participation is required. Their capital, though due to challenges mentioned above, are channeled elsewhere to the detriment of our nation. A course in the UGBS program covering policy and environmental legal frameworks, as well as social and affordable housing, will be welcome. Real estate is a tangible asset. You can touch it and feel it, and that stops people thinking past the physical. But you absolutely need to understand the finance behind it to get it right. A mix of real estate expertise and financial skill is a very powerful pairing. Today's real estate developer or investor needs to be more numerate than his or her predecessor. Tomorrow's even more so. Therefore, a curriculum covering financial modeling cases, real estate finance, commercial real estate analysis, capital markets, REIT analysis, etc., will be helpful. Along with this, the industry can be volatile, as we all know it, and that makes it returns on investment risky. This notion has affected real estate funding in Ghana, and the risk is a deterrent to many financial institutions. The students' ability to explore innovative funding and the KPIs associated with it would be essential to guide planning, development, and the growth of real estate in Ghana into the future. Based on the multidisciplinary nature, UGBS may consider a real estate program that churns out well-rounded trainees who can manage all aspects of the space and asset market and the development industry. In my real estate career, I've had the opportunity to cover many components of these programs, and it has served me well. Thus, courses in business valuations, project management, construction, value of design and development, procurement processes, commercial leasing, negotiation and strategy should be integrated into the real estate program. Governance and regulation have an even greater effect on this industry, as legal and regulatory changes have forced all businesses to pay more attention to governance. Here in Ghana, changes in financial regulations have had knock-on effects in real estate, for debt providers in capital raising, for landlords, and for tenants. The course in real estate transaction law would be helpful to the students. Another area sits in technology and sustainability, and these are now very much a part of a real estate industry. In Ghana, most commercial developments with a global outlook are aspiring to develop IFC EDGE certified buildings and use technology as a way to pursue smarter and more sustainable buildings. The real estate program must therefore incorporate digital trends into its curriculum. Finally, global immersion opportunities should also be an integral part of a master's program being developed. Exposing our students to global real estate hubs and time abroad will help them in their ideation processes for how we can incorporate global best practices in the Ghanaian industry. With this said, I would like to pause here, and I wish all participants a fruitful discussion at this workshop. Thank you very much for having me.
I think we can do it better for Madam Chairperson. Wow. Real estate done right can put Ghana on the map. And I'm sure as I was listening to her, I was gathering some of the potential modules in the program, because there were some great proposals in there coming from a solid background. I wonder, it's one of the striking things in her profile was the fact that she studied commercial real estate analysis and investment at the MIT School of Architecture and Planning, and holds an MBA in international business from the Birmingham University. So, Madam Chairperson, you are the right person for this occasion. Thank you very much. We appreciate you. Let's do it again for her. Thank you. So we move from ladies first. We move to our second chairperson, also very, very experienced, and I'm sure you'll be delighted to hear from him as well. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Patrick Bonfo.
Thank you very much. The lady has done a very good job, has delivered quite a lot, said quite a lot. I will not take too much of your time, but I would like to say a couple of things. In our effort to educate ourselves in the area of real estate, I wish to say we need to look at blending practical training with what you learn in school, because most often what I have seen, I've employed a couple of master's degree holders in real estate, but they quickly learn that the reality on the ground is a bit different from what is taught in the classroom. There is so much to learn from what's happening in the industry, the laws underpinning the industry, and the seeming disconnect between the enforcement of those laws to make the real estate sector thrive, and what the law itself is supposed to be. It makes the practical side of things not work with what we learn in the classrooms. I will take this opportunity to I encourage you to have more programs like this where we can delve into a bit more detail some of the things that you need to know before you come out from the university. I'm very honored and I'm very happy to announce that I have with me here Vice President, second Vice President, Ms. Sitia Opuni. She's the CEO of Afarua Real Estate Company. I will encourage all of us to participate fully in this program. Make yourselves comfortable. We are here to answer most of your questions. Like I said, she's exhausted a lot of the issues, so I don't want to go into that. So thank you very much for having us, and I wish you all a blessed and a successful program. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's do it better for Mr. Bonfo. He's one of the people you can confidently say has seen it all when it comes to real estate in Ghana. So when he says that we should be blending practical knowledge with what is studied in the schools, I think he is spot on with that. Thank you very, very much. All right. With having heard from our chairpersons, I think it's appropriate at this point to receive the welcome address. And to help us do that is the Dean of the University of Ghana Business School. He's a professor in the Department of Public Administration and Health Services Management at the Business School. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Justice Baule is our next speaker. So let's put our hands together for Prof. Okay, so Prof. Abor has taken over.
Thank you very much. I'm not Professor Bawele. I'm not the dean. He asked me to step in for him. He got caught up in another assignment, so I'm stepping in for him. So I see on the program that I'm supposed to also talk about the purpose of our gathering. So I'll just merge both so we can move fast. Co-chairs, team speaker, resource persons, invited guests, faculty, staff, students, alumni, ladies and gentlemen. I wish on behalf of the Dean of the Business School, Professor Justice Bawele, to welcome all of you to this workshop. The University of Ghana Business School is a premier business school in the sub-region, and that is focused on developing quality human resource capacity and leaders through the provision of world-class management education and relevant cutting-edge research to meet national and global development needs. The school has over the years introduced a number of innovative programs to meet the needs of industry. We have programs across all the functional areas in business and management, right from undergraduate to PhD, in areas of banking and finance, development finance, financial risk management, marketing and marketing strategy, human resource management, leadership and governance, accounting, operations management, management information system, procurement and supply chain management, health services management, clinical leadership and management, management and administration, public administration and public sector management, tourism and hospitality, as well as international business. So you see a very tall profile of the business school with respect to program delivery. The desire to meet the needs of industry and contribute to policy through our cutting-edge research is anchored on our vision, and that is to become a world-class business school developing global leaders. We are always interested in market-driven programs, and we always seek the input of practitioners in our program design. We hope that this workshop will provide a platform to receive valuable inputs from you, which we will incorporate in the design and the delivery. And the school is very proud to engage practitioners, and talking to the chairs this morning, they are very much interested in supporting, and we'll be engaging a number of you as guest lecturers, part-time lecturers, and what we have as corporate executives and residents. So let me talk about the purpose of this workshop. So Ghana's real estate industry is booming, due to the continuous demand. But we see that there's still a huge gap in terms of the deficits in housing. The 2021 population and housing census revealed the extent of the deficit, and currently it stands in excess of 1.7 million. And therefore, there's a need to actually build capacity in this area. And that is why the UGBS is positioned to develop this program to address the need in the industry. We hope that this workshop will provide a platform for us to be able to dialogue with stakeholders, industry players, about the training needs and manpower needed within the real estate sector. Also engage with real estate industry and practitioners to educate and share their experiences, as well as bring together industry players, thought leaders from academia, business, and policymakers to promote the industry and reduce our housing deficit. So in terms of the purpose or the format of this workshop, there'll be a presentation by a renowned professor in the area of urban development and management. And then we'll also get presentations from resource persons to resource persons. And then we'll open up for contribution from all of you. And then I guess that'll be it. And then the chairpersons will give us their closing reflections. So basically that is it. So on this note, I wish to welcome all of you to this important gathering. Thank you very much for making the time. We really appreciate your input and your time. We don't take it for granted at all. And I wish all of you fruitful deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's do it well for Professor Abo. So he is a professor of finance and also the former dean of the University of Ghana Business School. And I must say that he's the chairman for the real estate committee. So he has supervised all that we're seeing and what we'll be seeing beyond this workshop. Thank you very much, Prof. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I think we're going to stay glued. Just like Prof rightly said, we are going to receive representation on a team paper that has been worked on by a renowned professor. One of the things I discovered about him was to introduce his wife first before I introduced him. So Mrs. Sebeyi Adam, if she's here, she can give us a wave. Let's appreciate her. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, to come up stage and walk us through the presentation, Professor of Urban Development and Management, in the name of Professor K.C. Sebeyi Adam, is next to join us here. Let's appreciate him. So I think you can keep clapping till he gets here. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. It has become a style. Come to the stage and remove this, but we shall soon stop doing that. Honorable Chair Lady, Ms. Cynthia Akpe, Honorable Co-Chairman, Mr. Patrick Bobonfo, Provost, College of Humanities, Professor Dan Fripon-Ofori, Dean, UGBS, as ably seconded by Professor Joshua Abo. The Dean, anyway, by the way, is Professor Justice A. Bawale. Chairman, Real Estate Committee, Professor Joshua Abo. Members of the Real Estate Committee gathered here, fellow participants. My job here this morning is a very short and simple one. It is to justify the start of a new real estate program at the School of Business Studies. And many of us gathered here might think this will be a study dense in real estate. You know, the buildings, the homes, the offices, how to design them, the land, how to arrange for their financing. Well, you'll be the judge at the end of the lecture. I can tell you that the program that is being contemplated, even though it's focused towards real estate, is really finance, banking, and securities program. The reason being, these are the things that are really constraining the financing of real estate in our country. And as the chair lady rightly said, and she said at a point that her training, when she came back, realized that there was a disconnect with what they do abroad and how they do it here. But I'd like to advise her this morning that Sankofa Yenchi, that really the way they do it there is still the right way to do it here. And we shall find out in a short while. Start, please. Good. You know, I just wanted to break our boredom with a picture. This is a picture of the Earth, planet Earth. And you can see Africa there with Saudi Arabia and Yemen in the corner. Everything else is water. Well, there is also Madagascar there. Now, unfortunately, we were trying to link up. The Earth is, now, why would I tell you all this? I just, incidentally, sometimes some people don't realize that the land is the Earth. The ocean is there. We can't do anything on it. The land is the little part of the Earth that creation has given us. And let's see what percentage of it is there. The Earth itself is about 5 billion years old, as you can see. And the total surface area is 510 million square kilometers. 70% of the Earth's surface is ocean. Nothing can be done there except travel through it, ships. Of course, technology is making it possible. These days, they're building bridges across the seas, and they're reclaiming some sections of the sea and building something. But these are very, very minimal. Only 30% is land. And of the land, only 10% is habitable. The rest is mountains, valleys, and so on and so forth. Ghana's surface area, which is the area that we're concerned with, is 240 square meters. Ignore my approximations, please. And thankfully, there is something that goes for Ghana. We are at the right center of the Earth. If we have nothing to be proud of, I think we can say that we are at the center of the Earth. Good. Now, again, I just brought this picture to break our concentration a bit. These are dinosaurs, and they live on the planet Earth some million years ago. The next slide will indicate how many. Dinosaurs lived 500 to 350 million years ago. Lucy, I trust we've heard of the name Lucy, was the name given a female skeletal fossil found in Sudan and has been dated 3.2 million years ago. That's perhaps our great earliest ancestor. The earliest human settlement dates 26,000 years ago, and it's been found in Spain. That's where people started just roaming about, gathering berries and fruits, and shooting animals and sleeping anywhere. They decided to start settling for the first time 36 years ago. The land obviously gives all of us sustenance, and today we know it provides too many things. Now, how does real estate come out of the land? Not all the land is real estate. Real estate is useful land plus permanent improvements, natural or man-made, including water, trees, minerals, etc., etc. That means that if any land is not useful, it is not real estate. And let me just give you a quick illustration. We have about 700 miles or kilometers of shore. Only certain sections, are attractive. The rest, no one wants to go there. And if no one wants to go there, it's not attractive. You can't spend money on it. It's just a natural feature of the planet Earth, which is there. You can't refer to it as real estate. Now, what is the built environment? Space and location are the prime factors of land use, are the natural and primary factors of land use. Now, if we take Accra, for instance, I think by the time the Ghans first settled on Accra, certain things attracted them. There was a natural space, and then perhaps it was also close to where they were coming from. We told the Ghans came from Nigeria. So there was space, and the location made it possible to have a cultural link easily to where they had been coming from. So once they settled there, the real estate nature of Accra began. Subsequently, as we heard from the last lecture, town planning and urban design sort of assisted the process with technology. Because if you do not bring town planning and urban design into the human settlement, there will be chaos. Ultimately, market and finance, these are the oil that sort of facilitate the machinery of the built environment, transforming it. It's not so quick. Yeah, transforming it into the houses and the offices that we see today. And then, of course, today in Ghana, we have urban areas, we have rural areas, and we come to the urban areas, homes, etc. All this is real estate in the rural areas, villages, farms, mineral locations, timber, rivers and lakes. Rivers and lakes, if they are useful, if people are going there and using it for fishing or whatever, yes, they become financially useful. And then the status of real estate can be put on them. That means that every piece of land is involved in some conflict to resolve itself in the use competition between sides based on their intrinsic values to become real estate or real property. New change. Now, having given us some basic understanding of what real estate is, one will ask why a course like this is not being taken, for instance, to KNUST, where land economy has been in existence for many, many years, where I was trained, for instance. But you see, this course or this program that is being contemplated is a bit far away from real estate itself. So what is the current knowledge standing, academic, for real estate in this country? Current knowledge, university degree and diploma education. Objective, simple. Recognize interests. Whose land is this? Whose property is this? How many years? Who leases this? Where is it registered? Differentiate it. The planners come in, differentiate it into layouts. You know, we have mortar layout, cantonments layout, and so on. And then to manage the land holdings. The current education appear to just cover these things, recognize interest in all that, differentiate them, planning, you know, urban design, and then manage the land holding. The second objective, of course, is then to determine values for basic transactions, a bank loan, sale of your property, and so on and so forth. All these are done as part of the current knowledge, you know, that exists. And it's been going on very, very well. If you want to buy a property today, you get into the market, you identify one, you get a valuer, you can easily value it for you. The lawyer will determine the nature of the interest that you want to acquire, and so on and so forth. What about the current knowledge standing from the professional standpoint? After 50 years of professional practice, activities have coalesced, and I use the word frozen, around three principal functions. And our friends here will bear with me if that is correct. Property management, valuation, and project evaluation. Because the professionals are not the ones who are doing the development, like the chairladies. They are into major development. The professionals are providing these activities, but it's not enough at all. So let's go on to, as a result, the real estate industry is struggling, and I use the term synergistic chasm. There is a gap, a break between the real estate industry and certain vital activities. There is low-level economy, poor land market information, absence of enabling legislation, unresponsive capital markets. I don't know if any real estate development, perhaps you let me know, goes to the capital market, sub-review for funding. No. Poor competition, you know, and then absence of expert knowledge. You can see I've highlighted and asterisks. This is where we go into. We do not have the professionals today trained, who perhaps don't even know what a building is or how to build it, but they know how to access the money from Chicago, capital market, or from London, wherever. Make it arrive here, let the property be developed. Those who want it, buy it, and start living comfortably. He will not know what the buildings that these monies came to do. But this is very, very vital. I think we have arrived at the point where we need professional, that is people who have had university education and have actually also gone for professional experience that enables them to access $1 for a development anywhere, internally, a new housing estate. Government is subventing so much. As a result, the remaining portion can be taken from London market, equity market, at a certain interest rate. Because government is subventing, it becomes easier. People are not paying much rent or are not paying much for the buildings. But if government is subventing, we don't then have to put our hands on our head and wonder which bank in Ghana is going to bring the money. Please structure the funding and put it out there. Now, putting it out there can only be done, in my view, by people trained and who have the acumen and the links to go out there and get things done. Next. Okay, so I'm saying we need a new approach, a purposeful academic stroke professional education to endow the industry with an elite of experts, exceptionally knowledgeable in global standard real estate investment and financing. Now, the operative word there is global. You know, I want us to, you do hear this term very often, oh, try and get out of the box, come out of the box. No, I say we need a game changer. A game changer. Let our banks not think that they have the money to finance real estate here, but let them, cooperate with people who know where some monies are. And I bet you there's a lot of money somewhere at a rate that is attractive to what we want to do here. And real estate is an interesting area of investment. It's always there, by the way. The investors, if they're having difficulty in your repayment, can always come back, see it, understand the sufferings, refinance it. These things are possible with real estate. I know it's also possible with other forms of investment, but real estate in particular has the advantage of lending themselves to refinancing. Okay, next one. So what are we suggesting? Now, at this point, I have to crave the indulgence of Professor Abo and the other UGBS team that I joined from outside, that certain things are mine ideas, and during the development of the program, they will come up for review. It's just ideas that I have. The abstract idea is not an ordinary master's degree. No, we're not thinking of an MSc or an MA, no. In fact, I believe tech is Dr. People are here. Yes. Tech already has a master's, right? In land economy. Yeah. But I can bet you, I may be wrong, that it is steeped in theory, concepts, and local ways of resolving our real estate problems. But that shouldn't be it. We should go beyond it. Rather, the general notion is one of radical real estate business reorientation in Ghana, distinguishing it more in terms of securitized interest and tradable assets. Now, what do I mean by that? The real estate itself is there. It could be an office building in the city center or the airport city. But so many millions of dollars. But that shouldn't be of any concern or interest to the professional we're having in mind right now. This is, I have this office building here. It's trading so much, there's so much units of securities in it, and it's on the stock exchange. It's doing very well. It's even possible that he's never gone to see the building, which he financed from ground to 20th floor. He's never seen it, but it's done, performing well. All he's interested in is that the money to do it came through how he structured the investment, and that the development is up, and those who brought in the money are happy because they're trading happily on the stock exchange with either commercial papers or notes, security notes, $1,000 each or $100 each, whatever it is. That is what the new professional should be interested in. Next, please. There's a scheme going on now. I won't identify it, but you can imagine it's in Accra here. It's brand new. I mean, it's virgin. How is this 250 acres? How is this going to be financed? And forgive me here, but it appears, you know, we have a situation where certain other persons from other countries, sometimes they are even Ghanaians, are able to access funds. And before you know, a beautiful block of flats has gone up at airport residential area, and the owner is sitting pretty in Beirut, Lebanon. I have nothing wrong with even coke money being smuggled into, I don't see it. It's happening all over. But the point is, the economy itself must be solid and capable of doing these things. Then if people are, infusing these little things in it, it's okay, But what we're having now is that a lot of our major developments going on, with all due respect, Madam Chairman, in rich airports, cantonments are being financed from outside. Our banks, even if the funds were coming through our banks, then some capacity building will, help the banks. But no, somehow, payment for trucking sand is made from abroad somewhere, and you take it to the money changer, or the place where you change a cedi to dollar. And then, yeah, forests grew and they pay you. It's not the way. But that is because we have not built up the structures that should do this. And I'm telling you, this development is in the primest of primes of locations. And for a 250-acre thing, we're talking about perhaps $25 billion in terms of the infrastructure and so on and so forth. It shouldn't be difficult for a well-trained, MBA guy, real estate, who, whose prime interest is to look for funding for this. It shouldn't be. Given where it is, I think some people know where it is. Well, can you change it, please? So the education that, please, you're timing me, please. Let me not, the education that is being suggested, again, Professor Abo, when the time comes, it's in your hands. Anyway, these are just my ideas. And the university's plan for MBA may not exactly be like. I'm thinking that we must have an 18-month executive program. Someone who even has done an MBA in finance can still do this. You see, because this course is to turn someone's focus from just financing car assembly factories, from biscuit making factory and so on, to real estate. And I'm telling you that there is real estate funding sitting. If you have the right structure, you can access it. Money doesn't know location or, doesn't have any color. All money wants to know is that it will come back. And if the money knows that this place is even so profitable, it's not coming back. It will continue to stay there, and move from one development to the other. So, I'm thinking 12 months of intensive tuition in finance, banking, and real estate. Of course, there is a need for the person, in case he hasn't even done real estate before, to have some understanding. But the emphasis is on finance and banking. 3 months international professional attachment. Please, I will stress on this. It's absolutely essential. You won't know what a person who spends 3 months at some real estate investment trust firm in Sydney or even in South Africa can come back to do. You will know. If you leave that out and just give the education, you haven't really done the refocusing that we're talking about. Because he comes back knowing that there is funds sitting, looking for where to go. This is how it can come. He then also develops or creates friends, networks through which these funds can come. And I couldn't stress that more. Now, in the 3 months, we're saying that he must come back with a gradable report. And they spend 1 week post-attachment seminar to present the report. And then they have 3 months thesis or dissertation to prepare. Next, please. Now, a very modern service, self-service refueling station. A professional can decide to be just solely interested in energy. You know, don't forget, soon we might translate from gas to electricity. And so a firm that is installing electric stations all across the country, that's a big firm. And it can be funded. Yeah. So, no, I think there's another one before this. No, okay, go on. Okay. Well, before the real estate guys accused me of promoting an MBA real estate without much in real estate, this slide shows that, no, there will be a lot. During the academic study, there will be a lot to study. Bearing on real estate analysis, location analysis, growth models, land values, trends and indicators, regression analysis, and so on and so forth. So there is quite a bit on real estate there. But I should always say that banking and finance is really the thing, the tools, the thing that this guy must hold to be able to get the real estate system running. Next, please. I think I have just 5 minutes left. Yeah. Now, the professional experience. The one I say is sine qua non to this proposal. We're thinking of arranging the 3-month attachment to firms. You know, we can get firms that will take them on, and the know-how and excellence. They will learn about funds creation, how they create funds, and global access for real estate. It's vital. And then they will understand investment criteria and attraction for global real estate market. We have to compete. You don't sit down and think, oh, but where is the money? Where's the money? You must go out there, listen to where the money is, what type of money, and what is it looking for, and meet it. If you don't meet it, the money will pass by the Gulf of Guinea here and go to South Africa, or around Africa and go to Singapore. That's what is happening. Or, in fact, it can even come from Singapore and come. It's just looking for a place. Next, please. Now, who qualifies? Anybody working in banking, finance, securities, insurance, pension, investment trust, Securities and Exchange Commission, GSC, Ghana Stock Exchange, yeah, Bank of Ghana, labor unions, metropolitans. Now, let me make a comment about metropolitans. You know, our local government is still messed up because they must be allowed to be on their own. At least we can start with 3 or 4 that have the capacity to raise enough money to run the city. Kumasi, Accra, Secondary Takrady, Tema. I don't know much about Tamale, but these 3, they should be building their own roads today. You know, and they are capable. But if you do not have experts who are able to access, even locally, let's not go abroad, access locally how they can raise money, valuations of properties. Accra now has about 40, 50,000 buildings or more, maybe more. But how do you value them? There are techniques, there are new methods. We have the know-how, the computers are there to make you do quick valuation. I can, mapping. It's also there. Fortunately, we have the drones. If a drone runs around Accra for a month, it will give you section upon section of Accra. And then you combine that with the ownership record of properties, and then the valuations come in, with the multiple regression analysis. So there are means to do these things. Please go on. I'll finish. Now, what should the person who is selected to run this, to go through this program be? You must have knowledge of the global and capital market. By the time he comes back after the 3 months, he knows it. He must be able to bundle real. If, for instance, he's working in a bank, he comes back and he says, oh, all those loans that you have given as collateral, the properties that are in your possession as collateral, we'll bundle it together, take it back to the stock exchange, raise money from there, the bank has new capital, whilst people are paying their the loans they took money. It is possible. Structuring real estate investment trusts, that is, start the view. We've been waiting for you guys. Thanks to you, at least real estate investment trust is now a legal entity. But I believe no one has started it. My wife and I tried to get, is it Vanguard? We had several meetings with Vanguard trying to get them to start their own. At a point, I don't know, they grew wolfy. Anyway, municipal financing, they will know how Accra or Kumasi to finance itself. It's a disgrace to have a large city like this, and it's, it cannot do anything except Parliament passes a bill, give them so much money. No. And the last I heard was during the Honorable Minister of Finance's address, when he said the new sources of funding, property tax. Property tax belongs to the local government. They are the ones to raise property tax to pay for new roads, urban lights, traffic lights, drains, etc., etc. So I don't know if they raise it, if the central government raises it, where the money will go. Public housing and so on. Okay. There are certain things which must happen. The laws must also be, active and aggressive, for today's living. And I think, for instance, the mortgage laws that exist were made specifically for HFC. They need to be revised because it's not easy for many institutions to take on someone who has defaulted on their mortgage. It should be summary, you've defaulted. Third point, finish. That is the way that makes the institution able to run itself. But if the institution is going to be bogged down in court, no, it's not going to happen. These are things that they do abroad. And we sit here and we say, oh, everything works well abroad. No, it works well because they do it properly. They didn't come from heaven with it as white people. No. They found out. how can, we help in housing? How can the city grow? How can the banks grow? And they built laws that make it possible. And we should also do same. Okay, can you please? We're moving on so that we'll finish shortly. Court, please go on. Later, please, I've asked the secretary to the real estate committee. It's on the platform. So if anybody wants to go through. Now, information technology is vital. Today we have it. You all remember digitalization, or whatever it is. It's here. And it enables, accessing funds, because you will see what it is, where the funds are. But if you are not an alumni of that funding circuit, there could be 10 million, but you have to punch through. After this training, be part of it. John is in Chicago and he knows you. So he said, John, we're looking for, so okay, I'll tell somebody there's some money in Singapore. That's how we will do it. Okay, can you go on? We have to be able to do this. Not that somebody will come with some money, funding money from somewhere and do it for us. Now, during the time we're having a few meetings, we thought of, what should be the name for this program? And I think this should guide us as we continue the subsequent meetings in developing the program. The name should be relevant and realistic. And I think it should be MBA and an executive MBA, because you see, I'm not thinking of someone who has just finished a first degree and turns back and walks into this program. No, no, no. I'm thinking of people whose companies now see how they can be useful. Come back, an insurance company, a pension fund, come back and tell us what to use this huge fund, which people are taking, and giving us anyhow and so on. What do we do to it? All right. And then if they, for instance, after a while, by the time we have the third batch, you find that they meet somewhere to have a drink. Not a coffee shop, but they meet somewhere to have a drink. And then they will be, creating a guild. And one is telling, oh, I'm looking for this. Don't worry, I'll tell a friend in Sydney. He'll respond to you tomorrow morning. And they grow, and before you know, funds, the banks will not be, looking for funds anyhow. Finally, go on. So I am suggesting, with all due respect, Professor Bo, for it to be called Executive Masters of Business Administration, Real Estate Option. And the final slide, yeah, that's from me. Thank you very much for the attention.
Wow. Shall we appreciate Prof once again? A very insightful presentation. Thank you very much, Prof. Sebeyadom, for this presentation. One of the interesting things I saw in there was the need for international professional attachment. It's very, very important. And I'm sure if there are some students here, they must be excited about that. While you're excited about that, also don't forget that there's quantitative analysis in there, quantitative techniques. So as for quanti, you can't run away from it. All right, thank you once again, Prof. So this workshop has been supported by Access Bank. So I'd like to acknowledge Access Bank and Stanbic Bank as well. And of course, Best Western Premier Hotel for doing us some good for this to happen. As I mentioned early on, this is a hybrid of academia and industry. So after receiving a detailed and insightful presentation from the academic side, I think it's also good to have an industry perspective. And we have two resource persons to help us do that. So the very first to join me here is the Deputy Director General Finance at the Securities and Exchange Commission. Indeed, it was, should I say, prophetic that Prof mentioned his name. So ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Paul Agabio to talk to us from the industry perspective.
Good morning, everyone. Abo, Madam Chairperson and Mr. Chairperson, Prof. Yadom, Sebe Yadom, all distinguished persons here, all protocols observed. I was told to make a presentation, so I don't have a speech. But I'll share a few, I would say, early thoughts before I get into my submission. And it's interesting that SEC was invited to this event because, as Prof mentioned, on the capital markets, do you see real estate in Ghana? You technically don't. And it's strange, actually, because real estate is everywhere. And when you think of capital markets, it should reflect your economy. When somebody's investing in the capital markets and securities, they should invest in things they see. So you go to America, you see Coca-Cola, you see iPhone, you see Mac, and you know that, okay, I'm buying this company, I'm buying it and I'm seeing. When it comes to a stock market and you look around, what are you seeing, what are you buying? We all eat afufu and palm nut soup. And where is the palm plantation? Where is the plantain farm? Where is the corn warehouse that you can invest in and get a return on? And those things, one might say, are what is the emotional component of investing. In as much as economics is logical, there's also behavioral economics, where people behave on things that call their attention, things that drive passion. And so we were very excited to hear about this interaction. Madam Chairperson has taken the words out of my mouth, so I will not go over some of the things I have here. And I think we've covered quite a bit of ground. We can go to the next slide. I'll also share a personal experience. When I was an intern at JP Morgan, my associate told me, look, you're a young man, you probably don't have, you have loans and stuff, but buy some shares. And I looked around, and one market operator I saw offering some investment was a REIT index fund. So not only do they have real estate companies listed, you have REITs, which are holding the assets, and you have so many REITs that they form an index fund that invests in REITs. I hope you are seeing the derivative out of this. So that means that when the real estate company pays a dividend, the REIT gets its portion. Then the REIT pays, because it's a cash event, the REIT also realizes cash. And because the index is holding a representation of the real estate industry, it also pays a dividend. And what does that mean? At 24, every 3 months, I was getting a dividend of, say, $50 or $20. And it was not a lot of money to put away for that purpose. So that's the opportunity set we are looking at, and I think we can get there. Now, I'll speak before, please come back, just to set the stage. We'll talk briefly, maybe I'll skip on the introduction a bit. But we'll also talk about the real estate in Ghana from our perspective. We'll talk about the capital market master plan, which we launched last year in May with support of the minister. We'll talk about how we seek to promote Reits under the CMMP. And then we'll talk briefly about licensing and establishment operations of Reits under the 2019 guidelines. And then I'll also speak briefly about Reits regulation and registration of Reits in other parts of Africa. Typically, the market is ahead of a regulator, unfortunately, in this space. We got pressure to do this guideline, but when we finished it, we asked who's coming to do it now, and we're still waiting. So I thought I'll take this platform to preach the gospel. Okay, so real estate obviously is seen as a profitable sector. It's also an index for measuring growth. If you look at GDP measurements, the ancillary services from real estate, accounting, legal services, banking transactions, all feed into GDP measurement. So it has an automatic multiplier effect. When you see one building going up and the building cost 1 million, it means that the ancillaries, the money that went into that 1 million seat has passed through several hands. And so there's a clear multiplier effect there. One estimate is that your GDP asset base is between 5 to 12 times your GDP. So if you take Ghana's GDP to be 400 billion, then your real estate stock base, if it is 10 times, you're looking at, say, 4 trillion cedis. Now, obviously, we look at developers. They are the first call. They take the risk, they organize it, they finance through various means. But a big factor, as Prof mentioned, is urbanization. What is the land useful? According to our census, about 56.7% of our population has moved into cities. So the urbanization drive is there without debate. Then we come to the perennial housing stock discussion. So I think Prof. Abol mentioned 1.7. Thankfully, if that's correct, then it's gone down. The data I had said 2 million as of 2019, so that can be corrected. But that also means that according to the stats, you're looking at about $3.4 billion a year. So again, this is 3.4 billion. And if the implication, the multiplier effect is 10 times, then that's about 34 billion push on our GDP if we are trying to achieve this. Now, clearly this represents a large opportunity. And the question becomes that where will the money come from? How will it find the location? And what can the regulator do to facilitate this process? We can go to the next slide. So from the local perspective, I came to Ghana in 2010, and part of the excitement was that we found oil. So we're going to have a gush. So in 2007, there was a lot of momentum. A lot of foreigners were coming in. People started moving into the cities because they thought, look, money is going to come. Even if you're not in the oil sector, you're going to participate. There's going to be some flow through. You also have other factors. So you have the markets. When oil came, the market also shot up. You also had, we even did the Ghana fixed income market, and the volumes there have been phenomenal. You also had macroeconomic stability. Once we went through the hectic period and we came out of that, even though we've had bouts of inflation, overall the economy has been stable. And then you also had deepening of the financial sector. There's been some hiccups, but that is in every country. There are hiccups. The sector is becoming deeper. And then obviously you have regulatory and legal frameworks that have come into play. In general, in Ghana, we see real estate as a hedge against inflation. People price or index their returns against dollar. They expect a real return, and that has implications. Then when you look at the GDP contribution in terms of real estate, it's been going up. So at the last data we had, it's been 3%. And that's a significant portion. This is just a high level. I'm not sure that the laborers are being counted in all this. They may be captured in a different data set. We can move on. Okay. So from connecting the real estate sector to the capital markets, I think some of the speakers have done justice, but I'll get into a bit of Prof. I hope I'm not getting ahead of your program with this presentation. But how we see it is that you typically have your tenants, whether it's a landholder or somebody who's leasing or a renter. And they would typically need financing. So either they are relying on monthly cash flows, but what you could also have is a structure, a special purpose vehicle. And that entity has debt, quasi-debt, and equity structures supporting its capital structure. The typical home buyer operates a similar framework. He contributes with 30% equity. He borrows from my co-facilitator here, his debt equity portion. And sometimes he doesn't have enough equity. So he goes to another bank loan and takes a personal loan, which is his mezzanine, because that's a 3-year loan he has to top up. Then there's also the initial fund. Before you can even rent a house, you have to even build the house. So the originator would also have to sell the underlying property, and then he gets the funds for the purchase or for the construction of the property. Then on the capital market side, the entity, this may be a private entity, but it can also be a public entity. Clearly, a private entity will appeal to the private markets. And there is a actually the private market for real estate is bigger than the public markets. So even though I am very interested in the public markets, now we also regulate private equity. So that brings some aspects of the private markets into our remit. So you have financial intermediaries who will help to structure it, to package it, and to put it out in the marketplace. Then you have your investors who will participate in the equity piece. So in 2007, just as we were finding oil and we were very excited, there was the global financial crisis. And I think we shouldn't look at Ghana in isolation. The monies that Prof was mentioning are part of a global circuit. So as we were very hopeful, the world was looking very doubtful. And then the result was that real estate itself was actually part of the crux of this crisis. The deep intermediation also resulted in and there was also low interest rates at the time. There was inadequate supervision. There was a hype in the bubble, and that led to a crash, which affected several global financial centers. Following that, regulators have adjusted their metrics. So we realized that don't leave it to hope, always measure. And it meant that regulators had to improve the toolkits that we use to assess that kind of risk. Then there's also the issue of maturity mismatches. So you had structures that were necessarily short-term, chasing long-term assets. In Ghana, we also had Bank for Housing and Construction run into trouble. And this has also led to a point where intermediation is seen as a very critical function of the markets. And I think the other speakers have dealt on this. So capital markets is assuming a greater role. There's one company on the stock market now that has bonds, but there's no equity player on the capital markets. So we see Reits as one element of access. They are easy to understand. A lot of people also like landlords want their rent. And Reits provide, typically we require a payout of dividends. So it makes it attractive from a pension fund perspective. They don't say goodbye to their money forever. They want some kind of a return. But there are other kinds of securities. There's mortgage-backed securities. There's commercial mortgage-backed securities. So residential mortgage-backed securities are also there. We have commercial mortgage-backed securities. And according to the FTSE EPR REIT, which is an index of REIT funds, the US commercial market is about $30.2 trillion. And of this portion, the listed amount is $3.7 trillion. Okay. So for Ghana, what is that number? So we are not expecting all real estate to come on the market, just a portion. And if we're talking about 4 trillion cedis, and the commercial portion is, say, 10%, that's about 400 billion cedis. And you get 10% of that 400 billion coming on the market, that's 40 billion cedis. Our market cap right now is about 64 billion cedis. So we haven't seen anything yet. This is really like the start of the game. So we say REITs, Act 929 made a provision for the creation of REITs. And generally, if you think of a listed company, any of the real estate company, I think I went for one of Mr. Bonful's events and I said, look, besides the REIT structure, you can also come and issue your shares. And that's, if you say that I'm issuing shares, but my dividend policy is 50%, all profits we get will pay out 50% or pay out 70%. That becomes a value proposition because people are buying the underlying trade, right? They're not necessarily buying your business operations, they're buying the real estate deal. We can go to the next one. So simply, how do REITs work? You have your investors, you have properties that generate income. So your malls, office spaces, warehouses, hotels, apartments. And those properties are bundled together into a vehicle. They generate profits. Obviously, a real estate person will tell you that you can always structure your profits. But we want to look at a situation where the operating income is shielded from taxes because you structure your profits to minimize your tax burden. And what we have gotten Parliament to do is to grant tax exemption on REITs. So you don't have to go through a gimmick to avoid paying taxes. On the face of it, the taxman will look at you favorably if you're classified as a REIT. In lots of jurisdictions, please go back. And let me know if I'm going over on time. Okay. Go back to the graphic. Yeah. So in lots of jurisdictions, you have about 90% of dividends being paid out to the investors. That means that a REIT is almost like a static entity. It is not always building, it's not always expanding. Once they have a stock of property, for the next 10 years, they have that stock. It keeps paying, it keeps paying. If they need to expand or acquire another property, they typically issue new shares. So of your 40 billion we've started with, after 10 years, after 5 years, Madam Chairman has built another building. The REIT wants to buy that building. Instead of telling investors, guys, this year I'm not paying a dividend, it tells the investors, we have this property worth $20 million. We want to buy 70% of it. We put to the shareholders. Do you want to do a rights issue or do you want to invite new shareholders? They vote. They do a rights issue, new shares are issued. Capitalization of that REIT goes from 100 million to 120 million to enable it to buy an additional stake. And that is the expansion. So you don't dilute shareholders, you expand the asset base, you expand the shareholder base. We can go to the next. So we have a small case study here. What is happening in Australia? Australia actually has one of the largest REIT markets outside the US. Their market capitalization is $143 billion. There are 47 REITs on the ASX. We have about 36 companies on our stock exchange, the whole economy. This is just REITs. And we don't have any real estate companies on our stock exchange yet. So they are some of the largest groups in the world. So you have the Goodman Group, you have the center group. But it's funny, the world's a small place. One of the research I was doing for a client when I was a consultant was to look at the Ireland case and the Singapore case. And the Singapore Reits market started with a data center. The banks decided that Singapore as a financial hub needed to have a world-class data center with deep resilience. And so they had invested in a couple of data centers. And the view was to move these into an SPV. And because these were real estate assets, the structure that made sense was a restructure. So you have a REIT, a data center becoming a REIT. And because they have 4 or 3 different centers, people pay rent to have your data hosted there. Data is a better tenant than people. If you need to kick the data out, it's easy. Right, so it gets around a lot of the issues. And if you have a data center under an apartment block, the apartment may not earn you that much, but the data center will pay for the rest of the building. So that's a few case studies there. We can go to the next slide. So for our capital markets, which I mentioned earlier, a key plank really is to deepen Ghana's markets and to introduce additional products. So you want products you can see and touch: agriculture, real estate, mining. You can go to the next slide. Okay, there are 4 main pillars. We want to create a diversity of investment products and liquidity in the securities market. We want to increase the investor base, strengthen infrastructure and market services. We also want to improve regulation and market confidence. These we have linked to national priorities, which if you talk to both sides of the aisle about manufacturing and agriculture, it's a no-brainer for Ghana. I mentioned real estate as well. You have rule of law as well, so strengthening institutions. And the reason why we call this a master plan is that not just about SEC. Because if we talk about real estate laws, if you want to securitize, your fundamental law has to be strong. And that is part of the problem. So in this platform, under the master plan, we've brought in all these other stakeholders to a round table to deliberate on these issues. We can go to the next. Okay, I'll skip. Before we move on, so in 2019, we actually issued guidelines on the establishment of REITs. It's available on our website. But these are a few of the flagship initiatives under the master plan. So under the commodity exchange, we're looking at additional commodities. We're looking to promote REITs and collective investment schemes. We're looking at digitization. We're looking at pension funds and how they operate. We're looking at market makers. We're looking at municipal and infrastructure bonds. We're looking at training, so capacity building of market operators, and then obviously investor education, among others. We can go to the next one. Okay, so in terms of the CMMP and REITs, we want to develop and promote the formation of REITs. And we see it as a way of pooling resources to address the housing deficits in Ghana. REITs often are focused on commercial properties, but oftentimes you have to look at your context. What context are we in? Instead of funds going into commercial property, but residential for housing, you don't see that much. And that's where we have to think of government subsidy or government underlying infrastructure for developers to add on value. And then also we want to diversify the pool of capital available in the real estate sector. So that becomes a structured way of granting access. We can move to the next. So here again, we look at affordable residential housing, portfolio diversification, liquidity, regulation, and good governance. We do acknowledge that access to funds has been a challenge for the real estate sector. So in as much as a regulator, we have a view, we rely on the private sector to implement. So you cannot tell SEC to establish a REIT. We can create the enabling environment, but the private sector has to pick up on those initiatives. We can go to the next. So the main characteristics, the REIT raises equity and debt finance. It acquires an investment portfolio. It manages the portfolio and then pays rental and interest income. Our REITs can also be mortgage REITs. So they can be investing in securities, they can be investing in equity, and they can be investing in real property as well. So they have a range of assets they can hold. From the shareholders' perspective, the shareholders buy shares. The monies are put into the investments. The investors are not involved in the portfolio management. There's a manager who's engaged to manage the REIT. Then investors receive returns, being in the form of dividends, share buybacks, share bonuses. The regulatory framework will restrict debt to equity ratio. They must primarily own real estate related assets. So they cannot go into other ventures that they think may be more profitable. The REIT must distribute a majority of its income. Then the tax transparency, so they're exempt from capital gains tax on disposals. Distributable income is tax deductible. For the investors, they get liquidity, their shares can trade. We all know that real estate is not very liquid by its nature. When you buy a house today and you want to sell it, you have to find a buyer who wants to buy that particular house. Before you put on the market, you need to dress it up. You have to paint it and all that. And that can take you 6 months. You need money for your child's school fees next week. So the REIT offers the ability that when you need liquidity, instead of putting it on an illiquid market where there's lack of data, on the stock market, there's a price being offered and a trade can be done there. And then also the income aspect for retirees. A lot of retirees build their homes in their hometown. But do you want to live in your hometown with your hip problems? Probably not. You want to live in Accra, but you need income. And so with a REIT that is paying dividends every 6 months, every quarter, or every year, it becomes an income play, right? So you can hold it for the next 30, 40 years. And beyond your pension that you're getting from SNIT, your REIT is also paying to supplement your income. So the highlights of our regulation, that 75% of the revenue will come from rents, mortgage interest. 75% of assets must be in real estate. And then 80% of the distributable profits in each accounting period will be distributed to shareholders. And we gave a period of 3 years for any entity that comes for licensing as a REIT to list on an exchange. And then obviously we limit leverage, should not exceed 40% because the REIT itself is typically an equity funded structure. It may borrow for transactions, but sometimes there are debt costs that do the borrowing. And then the REIT may issue bonds to support. And then obviously we also put a restriction on concentration. So no more than 40% in a single property. So where are REITs in Africa? South Africa, obviously Nigeria has some REITs. Kenya has done that. Tanzania has done that. Morocco also has some REITs. And Ghana is now starting. We do have what we call a REIT fund. We can go to the next slide. HFC has a collective investment scheme, Republic Investments. They have a collective investment scheme that invests in real estate. So we outline some jurisdictions that have a REIT equivalent. Ours is less than $14 million. Nigeria has 136 million. Tanzania is about 40. And South Africa is $22.9 billion. Kenya is 35.5 million. Our economy size is about that of Kenya. Kenya and Tanzania are sort of our co-equals, but we are nowhere near them as it stands. So clearly we have some room to grow. Next slide. Then the key dynamics, minimum in real estate, Tanzania has 50%, Ghana and Nigeria are around the same, South Africa is around the same. Kenya has 2 structures, an I-REIT, which is an income REIT. Then they have a D-REIT, which is a development REIT. So that focuses more on development. Rwanda says 100%. Morocco is 70%. In terms of gearing limits, our 40 is right in the middle. Development REITs typically would borrow more. And then the payouts, we are also in the middle from that perspective. We can go to the next. I've mentioned the Republic investments. Next slide. Okay. So Ghana's property market, as we can see, has had exponential growth. But financing is still a problem. The high cost of financing, obviously, if you're relying on debt, not only do you have an interest rate, but you have a repayment risk, right? So the constant quarterly repayment or monthly repayment, before you even build the structure, the banker is coming for his principal. And you tell him, look, the structure is not complete. And he says, well, if I'm refinancing, pay 5% refinancing fee. Right. So right away, the project that was bankable, even at 25% with a 3% bank charge, once you are 2 years late, your bank charges start to accrue. It is no longer profitable. And so we have developed a structure. We have developed an environment. We've gotten a few inquiries, but I think it's still early days, and this kind of interaction goes to support our objectives. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Another applause for Mr. Babio. He shared some great insights, and I'm sure some of us are seeing opportunities in there. So we can keep the inquiries flowing after this session. All right, so it's time for us to receive our second presentation from our second guest speaker. We've heard from SEC. It's time to talk to hear from somebody within the banking space. So our next speaker is the business development head at the First National Bank. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Edward Nyako is our next speaker.
Thank you and good morning. Pablo and co-chairman persons. I am here to speak on behalf of Mr. Kojo Adukufor, who had to take on a second assignment due to an emergency. I want to thank the organizers for this opportunity to present on behalf of First National Bank. And I must say that the real estate finance course is something that's very, very dear to us as a business, because from where we sit, there are a lot of things that happen that we realize that the more we improve the knowledge base of people in industry, so far as real estate finance is concerned, will be very helpful to our business. Typical example, and I'm sure most of the developers here are aware. So if a developer goes into a typical real estate project and it's 100 units, we'll be very lucky to do mortgages on 20 houses. I mean, to do 20% mortgages. Most other purchases will come through cash payment plans. And it's something that is a big worry for us as a business. And we believe that a deeper understanding in real estate finance will help address these situations. And sometimes what we do access, it seems to us that from where we sit, most developers have a lot of real estate finance guys sitting with them, because we tend to struggle to understand how they are able to model their projects and be able to run that way. So we see a lot of development coming up. And when you see these developments, obviously it's a lot of capital, and it means that money is coming from elsewhere. Now, most of these projects, as you see, usually have to be fully funded. And now the question is, where are they sourcing for funding for these projects? Because you go to the banks and you realize that they are not funding much. The last time we did a check on typical mortgage portfolios, among 8 banks, it was just about 1.4 billion cedis, which is nothing to write home about. So what it means is that the money is sitting somewhere and it's not within the banking sector to be able to drive further developments. Now, we also, and we've heard about the housing deficit. Now, to address this housing deficit from where we sit, also requires a financial solution. And I'm happy there's been a talk about Reits, which is some of the things within the bank we are considering introducing onto the market. Currently, there is a developer in Pram running a rent-to-own scheme, which is also something that we believe is a solution to the housing deficit. And government also started a local currency mortgages, a pilot scheme that we believe the next phase will be rolled out second part of this year, because currently they are sourcing some funding from the World Bank. Now, the thing about funding, and I heard one of the previous speakers do mention, is the need to establish the right network that offers the kind of funding that suits what you are seeking to do in terms of your projects. And I must say, there exists a lot of funding opportunities, but there is the need to understand what is suitable for your project so that you know who to speak to be able to access funding. Most often we have quite a number of requests at the bank for people coming to do projects. And when you review their project documents, you can straight away tell that this person doesn't need debt funding. And it's all because they do not have professionals, experts, advising them on the best way to be able to fund their projects. If you really, we are in a bank, we are happy to give you money, but what you need to be sure about is that your repayments, once your repayments are not sure and your option is the debt funding, obviously you know that at somewhere along the line, we might not be very good friends. So as I did mention, projects needs to be fully funded. And when you get project proposals and you ask, so how is this project going to be funded? And the response is, that's why I'm here at the bank. Obviously, the bank won't fund the project 100%. And it's all because we think that there's a certain skills gap missing in the market, and that is why we receive such proposals. And to be able to do that, obviously, we want you, the project sponsor, to put your skin in it, put in some equity before the bank will fund. Now, even with debt funding, the question is, what is the type of funding that you need to be able to make your project successful, or how much money do you need to borrow? And most often, these proposals do not address them. And they don't address them because increasingly we realize that there is that knowledge gap. One question that we are struggling with, and I guess it's one of the things we encourage the business school in setting up this real estate finance, is to be able to build data for that particular real estate space, because there are no data and it's very difficult, even when you need to present proposals to some external institutions or international institutions. There are no data to be able to support some of the things. So I believe that in a program like this, where the business school becomes either the data center or the hub for real estate data, will be very helpful. Now, when developers complete, which currently we do have, because there are quite a number of them we are currently engaging. So they have units completed. They went into what you call cash payment plan. And normally what is happening on the market, because they don't want to borrow, because obviously the issue is that interest rates are high. So they offer 2-year, 3-year payment plan. Now these houses are completed. The people want to move in, but the developers are unable to hand over because the danger or previous experience, the ones you hand over, the people stop paying. Now, the question then is, what was the underlying financials in informing the various payment plans that was put out for these clients? And those are some of the things as a business we've been engaging some developers, and increasingly we realize that I know Prof mentioned about banks undertaking this course, but I think that from where we sit as a business, I'll be happy to see a lot of real estate developers finding themselves in this course, because the more they understand how they are financing their assets, the easier it will help the business as a whole and the economy. Real estate, as we see, and I take myself as an example of that. So I read building technology in tech, and when I finished, I had opportunity of working with ACPSTs in Pokwasiden. Now, after that project, I felt that the place I needed to be was real estate. Fortunately, at that time, they had funding and they were way ahead with the project at Pokwasi. But along the way, I realized that they didn't have funding to continue the project. So I decided to leave and pursue my quantity surveying profession. Now, when I did or passed my quantity surveying, I realized that I still had an interest in real estate. Fortunately, I had the opportunity of working with HFC. Then they had set up the Reits, and I joined as a project manager. Now I sat in meetings, and most often what was discussed, I didn't understand. So the only option was to go read finance, and I had to do an executive MBA in finance. So I went to the business school to read finance. But I think what I should have read at that time was real estate finance. So I did finance, came, and still working because I was working in. So I go for lectures, hear certain things, and when I come to work, I realize that what is being discussed is what was mentioned. Now, I would say that something that, a course that maybe I could have taken me 18 months as recommended to do, has taken me more than 10 years to do, because I learned finance and then had to work in the HFC, and each day begin to learn new things that I could have learned within. So I think that a program like that is laudable. It's going to help the industry. It's going to help business, and I'm sure you can count in, even though I've had this experience over this period, to undertake a course like that to enhance my skills. On that note, thank you very much for this opportunity to be able to share something with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's do it better for Mr. Edward Nyako. So I think with the 10 years, you can be a guest lecturer, visiting lecturer at the business school. I must say that I have a similar experience. So working with Petroleum City, Wonderworld Estate, in charge of marketing, and going to Apollonia City, realized there was some gap. So what I had to do eventually was to do EMBA finance. But I'm sure if we had this course or program at the time, I would have settled for this. So indeed, just like our last speaker said, it's very laudable, and we would all give plaudits to the real estate committee for putting this together, and generally for the UGBS. Thank you very much. At this juncture, we've heard from the academia, we've heard from industry practitioners as well. It's time to hear from you. And so with the help of protocol ladies, we'll just go around, take some feedback from you, contribution. It could be questions to the guest speakers. It could be input and observations you've made. It could be expectations, especially as we have some developers here. Maybe you have some expectations from the academia. It could also be your contribution or your input regarding the course, which has a proposed name, Executive MBA Real Estate Option. So whichever way you would want to contribute for the next 10 to 15 minutes, we want to hear from you. And I'm sure together we'll take some more nuggets. So the floor is opened now. This is why I stepped down, and with just a hand up, we will take your contribution, your question, and yes, we'll keep sharing knowledge. That is why we're here. All right, there's a hand at the back. So you would briefly introduce yourself, your name, and maybe company and your organization, and ask your question.
All right, so Sami Ewu, Buena Vista Homes. Listening to Prof, I get a sense the proposal to run this program is more tailored towards real estate financing. If that is the case, then maybe the naming should be EMBA Real Estate Financing. I say this because from where we sit as developers, there's a huge gap in many areas, which any training of professionals coming into the space could bridge or help. Typically, if you did a survey of the many promoters in real estate, you find that it's not even populated by professionals in the build space, by which I mean architects, surveyors, and stuff like that. But these are businessmen who have found opportunity in the real estate space. And then they, in turn, engage the services of professionals. Sometimes I wonder why we don't have too many trained professionals venturing into the space. Typically, there are a myriad of issues that confront them from the onset, being how to put the entire thing together, how to raise funds. This is capital intensive. So I would have thought that a program like that, if we were going to run it as a real estate, I mean, as a master's program in real estate, we have an environment where there are loads of things that we should equip people who want to go into that space, because that gap already exists. People aren't as well equipped to even venture into the space, let alone be looking at how to raise real estate funding. But if the idea is just to zero specifically on the real estate funding, then we probably should so name it, so that people don't come into the program erroneously, but they come clear in mind that this is tailored for raising capital for real estate. And then it makes sense that those coming in would be geared towards finance, and the like, because there is also the opportunity to look at bridging and equipping real estate developers with a certain skill set, which is very primary and basic. And I don't think this program suggests to address that. What do we do with that gap that also exists?
All right, thank you very much. Any response to that? Would Prof want to touch on that or any of the? Okay, all right.
Thank you for that good observation. But this program is attempting to zero in and narrow into the funding area with particular reference to real estate because the committee believes this is what is missing. I noticed that there is a whole area of real estate issues and problems that need attention. But this particular program that we're trying to develop is to go into how to bring the money to the market. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I think that's
With that clarified, then my point that the naming of the program should be clear. That is an executive MBA in real estate financing. And then that solves the problem for me. Thank you.
all right. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, that's a hand. I think one of you.
My name is Zinzi. For now, I'm representing the Ghana Institution of Surveyors. Just to touch a bit on kind of the issue going on, and then also a suggestion before I bring my point in. Prof said real estate investment and finance. I realize he mentioned that directly. I don't know, but since they're still developing the curriculum, because when we listen to what the chair teased out, and then what Prof said, I wonder if someone is coming from, because this is a multidisciplinary, if someone is coming from all these areas within 12 months, to be able to cover up all those things before going into the attachment and things like that, I don't know whether the person will be well-grounded to handle all the aspects. So it's very good that at the end of the day, it's focused on just the investment and then the finance. Alternatively, in some other areas, a very renowned university outside also who handles this, in the same department, they have real estate, and they have real estate finance. So when you come and you are interested in the multidisciplinary aspect, as our friend from Bonavista is saying, you can't go into the real estate, which kind of handles all and a bit of the investment and finance. But if you are coming in and you want to sit down with the developers and then do the financial engineering or be with the banks, then you may want to go into the finance. So as they are developing, they can still look at it, maybe start with one and later the others will follow. However, my president, the Ghana Institution of Surveyors, it is true that over the years, where Prof is coming from, which is land economy, which also now have the real estate, but at the BSc level, have been concentrating on real estate in the built environment. However, for about 2 years now, the profession itself even recognized these areas. And unfortunately, we do have people from other parts of the world, like the chair, who are specialized in these areas that have come in. So the institution has opened up a professional umbrella, bringing in some of those people and giving them certification to practice. So it's heartwarming to know that whilst we are accepting people from other parts of the world, we're now going to have homegrown one also. So her message is that the institution's arm is wide open to even help in looking at the curriculum when it's developed, to add some to it, and then also willing to accept people who graduate from this program actually as professionals if need be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Interesting perspectives. Thank you very much. All right. Mr. Rabia.
If I may just respond in general to that, but a few thoughts I also had. Because the angle is executive MBA, typically what you could look at is to structure shorter modules. Because this is not necessarily a full academic experience. Maybe I'll speak to my own MBA experience. We had, I'd say, full credit classes, which required a longer, let's say, corporate finance or debt instruments. Then we are going very deep. But things like operations, real estate finance, there was like a 101 section, which is half a credit. So you could take half, and cover something like transaction law. I'm not going to become a lawyer in this program, and who are 45, 50 years old after 4 months, 3 weeks. So you want to structure it so that it's absorbable, but have material that can digest later. And I think that's the practical matters, that you learn a little bit, and sometimes interacting with professionals, you pick up quite a bit. So you learn the theory or the theoretical basis, and then you go on the field or you absorb others from interactions, even with your classmates who may be practitioners. So that's one thought. The other angle I think may not have come out was the financial modeling aspect. And maybe to address the US surveyor, your point, people will sit on multiple tables, right? So you may find that somebody who is learning real estate finance will sit with the developer, because the developer needs to build a model. And I've seen transactions where they've done a business plan, but there's no financial model. And the key question an investor will ask you is, what is the IRR? What is the internal rate of return on the project? Because they want a number that they can buy. If you're not a financier, you are a market, you are a developer. But the industry expects that when there's an investor conference, it's not the broker or the advisor who's come to talk on the numbers. You, the entrepreneur, you should understand some of the numbers. And that is where you need somebody in your team who also understands the numbers and who can talk to it on your behalf. You have your advisor by your side, but the energy that somebody who understands real estate brings is different from a banker or an investment banker who will say, okay, I've run the analysis, this is the ratio and this all that, but he doesn't want to see the project. So there'll be those on that side, but also be those on the banking side, the general bankers, who, if they don't understand what you are doing, and if they don't understand real estate in its nitty-grittiness, they just assume what is the repayment schedule. And I have taken some clients to a bank before, and the structure the bank proposed was just terrible. It wouldn't work. You could tell from the beginning that this is a deal that's going to, and the banker says that that's meet my target. You see, so if this banker understands that, okay, I'm doing real estate finance, this is the model. Here's how I even structure the repayment cycle. But this banker should have at least started in a class with a real estate person. And that is part of the problem. That from the beginning, when people say, I'm going to be a banker, then they sit with accounting and finance people. When someone says real estate, and you don't have that, I would say, synergy happening. So I think the idea of the synergy helps, because if the banker is not a junior banker, he's not so much, the targets are his junior people's targets. He's at a level where when his junior people bring a deal, he can ask them, where's the model? The engineer person says, oh, I just built a cash flow. Is there a balance sheet? Is there an income statement? Are they linked? Right? How will repayments work? Then what is if his IRR is below 25%, it's 15%, and your lending rate is 25%, automatically it's not a bankable project. So I think those dynamics are relevant to that synergy that Prof mentioned. And I think that is where and I think for us regulators as well, if people understand the laws a little bit, sometimes the law helps you to structure the deal along the lines of the law, not just a deal in theory, because deals work in your mind. When it has to meet the reality of the legal environment, that's also something else. So we're getting that all 3 or 4 parties in the industry to engage and interact, I think will help to get a good industry base, and then we can take it from there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ababiro. Maybe 2 or 3 more, then we can move on. All right. Yes.
My question is a general one, but specifically directed at Mr. No, Ado Kufo. Now I'm talking about the home loans business.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I was looking at the wrong. Yes, I come from a background of oil and gas. For 20 years, I worked with Royal Dutch Shell, The Hague, and in Nigeria, Lagos, and Port Harcourt. So, but the common thread in everything is owning your home, okay, as a human being and all that. So I wanted to ask you how easy it is to acquire and get a home loan. For instance, if I've just graduated, okay, from college, university, how many years, and with the fluctuating dollar rate in Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, how is a Ghanaian, able to get a loan? And what are the criteria? And is it really easy to get a home loan? And if a home to a low-cost home to live in and to do as business, that is, give me a loan to build houses or a house to rent. How easy is it? I mean, with all the contending factors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Owning a home, I wish the developers would have answered this part. So typically what happens is you, the client, identify a property from a developer, and we expect it to put between 20 to 30% equity, and we will fund the 70 or 80 for 20 years. Now, first is most often young graduates, they don't have that equity to be able to raise for us to be able to provide. Maybe thankfully, they have parents who have given them some money, so they are able to pay the deposit. That will work. Then the next is to be able to give you that 70 or 80% means that you need a certain income to be able to qualify for that loan. And I must say that because of CD dollar challenge, it's always a bit of struggle. And I'll be honest with you, the people who are currently able to access mortgages are people who earn maybe about $1,000 per month income. If the person earns about $1,000 income, you can comfortably say the person can. But if the person does not, then they might have to do a joint application with either a sibling or if they are couples to be able to access the loan. And we actually do expect that your monthly repayments will be about 40% of your monthly income. Now, the thing about taking a mortgage and then renting, because I found myself in the mortgage space, I attempted that. And you realize that the rent you get is not enough to pay for the mortgage. Just I was having a chat with my tenant, and he was asking, can he pay the rent in CDs now? And I said, I wish I could do that, but that property has a mortgage that I need. So even though the person is paying rent, I always have to top up to be able to service the loan. Otherwise, the rent is not. You can possibly do that in maybe the much more airport cantonments where the rents are good enough. But for the kind of property a young graduate want to buy, $60,000, $40,000 units homes will not be easy to do that. Maybe I'll let the developers answer that one about low-cost housing.
So the question is, in effect, there's no low-cost housing. Okay, I think.
Well, let me just give you a little gist of what Grader is doing. We are coming to launch 20,000 housing units across the country. We're collaborating with government, and we hope to give these houses out at I can't mention dollars, right? So 3 bedrooms typically we're looking at $35,000 for a standard 3-bedroom house. 2 bedrooms we are looking at about $25,000. All things being equal, So this is what. So that is coming, and on our own at my inaugural speech last week, I intimated we're going to come out with another Grader estates, and it's going to be a typical one. So we're trying to come down with the price, like reduce the price for you. So we're coming out and we are targeting groups, organized groups, where we can do these things for. We are working with the Ghana Police Service as we speak, and we begin to talk to the TUC and all that. So if you have groups, associations that are interested in this kind of thing, you can call on us. We are willing and able to come together, sit with you, and agree on concepts, how we can do these things for you in Accra, Kumasi, the major cities for now. If we can congregate the numbers. Let me give an example. Let's say UTAG. Let's say we have, we have let's say 100, of your members in Kumasi interested. Then Grader, we will come and look for land, or if government is able to add, we do that for you in Accra, across the country, the country. So we are available for this kind of conversation. Now, this current council, we are ready to do business. So don't lose hope at all.
A sigh of relief. I think we can applaud that. That means something is happening, something positive is happening. Okay, 2 more than where?
Thank you very much. Patrick Esidomako, representing Graduate Students Association. Okay. I'm very excited about this whole program. And I'm a student of the University of Ghana Business School. We are happy for the introduction of this program. I was very happy when Mr. Bonfo was speaking that they have a program like that. Our major challenge on Legon campus for now, as student leaders, is accommodation issue. So I don't know if they are having plans to, fill the accommodation gap at the University of Ghana for us. And if they are ready for discussion, we can meet them and talk about that too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Grasak. Are you still doing in, out, out, in, or is in, out, out, out? There's nothing like that. Okay. All right. Okay, so Mr. Bonfo says you're willing to do that. So I'm sure there's a conversation we can have right after here. All right. I want to believe. All right. Let's go to Afariwa Estate.
Thank you very much. I would like to say that when we had the invitation to attend this workshop, we're very, very excited. I think it's a real defining moment that the University of Ghana Business School is considering, putting out a program like this. I would like to ask what the timeline is, what's the proposal for when you intend to go live. Now, in terms of the attendance here today, I think that we could have done with having more real estate developers attend, because I'm not sure about the proportion of attendees here today in terms of whether they are graduates actively attending the business school program, and how realistic or practical or useful a lot of the presentations were, especially from Mr. Paul Abebio, for example. And I would have liked to have had the invitation extended so that we could judge a lot more in detail, to have had more developers here to participate and put their inputs for what the program could expect. So in terms of the criteria, when Prof. Yadom was talking about eligibility to access it, then they could also input what they felt would be a useful criteria, maybe 3 to 5 years practicing as a developer before accessing this program. Because I think a fundamental issue as well has to do with the culture of how people came to become developers in Ghana in terms of having access to land. And when you compare it to the Western world and how land is passed by inheritance, and we know there's been a new land act where land is defined, how you find your land, if it's stool land or, CDC lands or whatever. So we could have done with having a lot more input from developers for this. So I don't know whether it's too late to go back to the table to see whether it's possible to have another workshop again, to have more, people like Mr. Ewell, contribute so you could put more meat into the program. The other observation or the other thing I would like to suggest is that we take Madam Cynthia's notes from her. You have a really good working program in there as to what the contents of this course could be. And I'm going to ask her if she can even share with me so I can go back to the table to learn. So these are some of the observations and the question for the timeline I would like to put across today. Thank you.
Let's put our hands together. I mean, very good suggestions for the working committee. Okay, so who would answer that question? When is it going live? When is the program going live? I think it's something we would want to know. Okay, Prof.
I think this question, it came up during our several weeks of discussions. And I remember Professor Abo cautioned that it looks like this might suddenly, generate passion and interest. And then we will not be quick and ready to meet the demand. So now that we see that there is growing interest, I'm sure our subsequent meetings to build, it's now we're going to build the curriculum and everything. We have an idea now how quick this should be. And I can't say it's now, the timeline, but I'm sure that we now are convinced that this is a program that is timely and people will respond. So you will hear from the university soon. Yeah.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for all of us. Very useful contributions, suggestions, and questions for what looks like a very promising program for the University of Ghana Business School. So at this juncture, while we are wrapping up today's workshop, I would like to take some closing remarks from our chairpersons. I'm sure they are seated together, so we'll decide who comes first. Oh, we should still do ladies first, okay. We've agreed to take her presentation.
I'd like to say thank you once again for the opportunity, and thank you to the speakers for all the information you have given us today. As a way to conclude, I think our speakers have educated us on various components of real estate. From Professor Sele Yadom, we got a take on what the university is currently anticipating to be the focus of the program, which is predominantly related to financial acumen. From Mr. Baby, we learned about the capital markets and what it offers real estate, and more importantly, the opportunities available to us when it comes to REIT. Mr. Nyako has spoken to us about mortgage funding and the opportunities available to the real estate industry when it comes to debt funding. I think what he struggled with was his response to Mrs. Adam, because the immediate response should have been no. It is extremely difficult for a young person, next to impossible in Ghana to own a home by a certain age, because the challenges are so many, as I listed earlier. And in addition to that, our bankers are not very friendly when it comes to looking at us in the real estate industry. Even companies with collateral struggle to raise funding. So I think that the discussion around financial acumen is extremely important. We need a new generation that is going to think deeply and help us to find ways around innovative funding, as I mentioned earlier in my notes. What I will say is that and I'm not sure what the university will eventually decide on when it comes to curriculum, but if you remember in my initial speech, I spoke quite a bit about the challenges and some of the modules to look at, some of which were outside finance. I still think that even if we look at real estate financing as a master's program, it should incorporate certain modules that gives the students a well-rounded approach to it. And I think Mr. Abibio mentioned that when he was responding to one of the questions. What I would also say in conclusion is that globally and right here in Ghana, real estate lags in terms of the proportion of women who venture into it. I have been the only woman in multiple rooms over the last 20 years. I sit in board meetings, I'm the only woman. I go into meetings, I'm the only woman. I'm on site, I'm the only woman. It goes on, and it hasn't changed over the last 2 decades. So I think what I would say is that there's a clear evidence that a more diverse workforce enables businesses to better reflect the market in which they operate in and the communities that they serve. So I will conclude by appealing to UGBS to make a conscious effort to make this program and its intake very inclusive. The challenge I see here that I think we also must acknowledge, and that's another challenge, would be to address working out how to promote entrepreneurial thinking and innovation within the master's program, because we will need both for a student to be able to succeed in the real world. Thank you to University of Ghana Business School for setting the pace. I'm excited for the possibilities for growth it brings with it, for the impact it will make on a generation, and for the continued intellectual engagement with the industry. Thank you very much. I would hand over to my team.
Just add a few words, please. When Prof was delivering his the list of things, you mentioned a review of the laws, and I think in my opening remarks I mentioned that to make the sector attractive, I have delivered a lot of position papers on this. Not when I say I mean greater, and we have done that to government. Respectfully, if you have an environment that's attractive, you don't need to tell anyone. They will go into that sector. Foreclosures are a problem, in this country, and the banks who are here will agree with me. I mean, you can't spend 7 years, recovering a property from a defaulter. Seriously, you go back to the bank, you went to the bank to put money in mortgages. As we were sitting, I was telling my co-chair that you enter a bank in the US or Europe, and on the board, the first thing you see on their board, mortgage rates and all that, and it begins. You enter a bank in Ghana, the first you see treasury rates, they want to take from you, not give to you. So if with the laws are such that the foreclosure we are proposing shouldn't take more than maximum 90 days. There should be foreclosure, simple as that. And if I know if I put my money in mortgage, and I can on default, I can easily recover. You don't need to tell me. I will invest in that. We are also pushing for a situation where the review of the law would take out, or rather will add to it, to say that it's not only financial institutions that can grant mortgages. Individuals as yourselves, myself, ordinary companies registered in Ghana, non-deposit taking can give mortgages. I was telling, when you mentioned the rent to own thing, I pioneered it in Ghana myself as a private company in 2010, 2011. The records are there. You are with Ghana Home Loans. If Kamia Dukuvio was forced, he would have told you. So I was trying to experiment on something because the banks were not forthcoming. So I said, why don't we do this directly? All right. I'm giving you 10 years, 15 years to pay this thing. The only snag here is that because of the law not protecting me, I said, I will not transfer ownership until you finish paying me the last dime. Fair deal, because I'm giving the house to go and live in anyway. All right, we did that. And I think that I can say confidently that at least about 60% of them were able to, successfully hold. A few I have to take them on in the law courts. But I mean, if 6% seems like a good number for a trial run, you understand? So with the law being tweaked, it will help us in the industry. When we build the houses, we want mortgages to be rolled out. If you cannot write up mortgages for them, we are in trouble. And you need the houses. We are building the houses, and you cannot buy the houses. How do we solve that? Number two, the issue of I think I mentioned, but I think we can talk about it. When you look at the practical side of things, it's always a challenge. So as she mentioned, let's see how best we can marry the two. The classroom work, and I will not mention a name, but in a sister university, I've invited somebody to their real estate thing. And we after the interactions, they realized that, there's a situation where they're sitting here with as professionals about this knowledge and transferring it into reality, making it happen. Seems like bringing heaven on earth, But when you speak to them and they through some of the questions and you tell them how to do some of these things, then they understand. Another thing, Mr. Ababi, my very good friend, maybe you want to look at non-recourse financing or off-balance sheet financing in the industry. We only, those dynamics are not so common in our part of the world, but with professionals like you, maybe we should be able to begin to open that door and let people understand. I've made those proposition papers to government that we're borrowing too much. We could do off-balance sheet borrowing, but non-recourse financing. The experts know what I'm talking about. I will not say much. Thank you very much for a very good, program. I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
Wow, I thought you were going to do it louder. Thank you very much. The committee has really done a very good job because these are real experts as chairpersons for the occasion, and it is very good. I'd like to acknowledge the committee members before we take the vote of thanks. So the chairman, as we know, Professor Joshua Ball, thank you very much for spearheading this. Professor Casey Sebeyadom, guest professor here. Professor AQQ Abuaje, professor at the Department of Finance. We also have Dr. Teddy Ose Kwachi, senior lecturer, Department of Accounting. He gave the opening prayer. Dr. Raphael Odum, senior lecturer, Department of Marketing. We have Dr. Frank Jemfi Yeboah, senior lecturer, KNUST, Department of Land Economy. Very passionate about real estate and my lecturer. So then Dr. Frank Ametepe, senior lecturer in property investment and finance at UCT. Then Dr. Precious Angelo Breni, lecturer in finance and real estate, Durham University Business School. Then Mr. Godwin Sela Brain, CEO, Setsaf Construction Limited. Mr. Ben Gomado Kobla, who is the country director for Commonwealth Enterprise and International Council. Then Mr. Edward Nyako from First National Bank, one of our resource people, and Miss Marjorie Celestina Quist, Senior Assistant Registrar, and Miss Nanaya Frimpon, Senior Admin Officer. A round of applause made this possible. Indeed, it's been a very good stakeholder workshop. And on this note, I'd like to welcome Dr. Raphael Odum to give us the vote of thanks. If Doc is around. Okay, Doc has a rep.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to thank God Almighty for being with us and helping us to have a successful program. On behalf of the Dean of the University of Ghana Business School, I'd like to thank Ms. Cynthia Akwi and Mr. Bonfo for accepting our invitation to share this program. We're very grateful to you. I'd also like to acknowledge our resource persons and thank them for their insightful presentations they made. And then to all those who supported us, indeed, we are very grateful. I'd like to especially thank Access Bank, Standard Bank, and Best Western Premier Hotel. And then last but definitely not the least, I'd like to thank all our participants for being here with us. Those who joined us virtually and then those who are here with us. You could have been anywhere, but you decided to join us over here to spend time with us. And we are very, very grateful for that. Thank you and God bless us all.
Thank you very much. We shall take the closing prayer from Miss Angela Alu.
Please shall we rise? Father in heaven, we thank you for the gifts of this afternoon, for the gifts of this day, and for a successful program. Thank you for the many insights that have been shared. Thank you for all of our speakers and for everyone who's been here. I ask that you help the committee and everyone who's in one way or the other involved be able to put together a very good curriculum and to cause this program to be a game changer for the real estate industry and for Ghana as a whole. We pray that you take everyone back safely home and that you continue to be with us and bless us in all we do. In Jesus' name we prayed, amen.
Thank you. And on the wings of the passionate prayer, I want to say thank you very much. We shall go for lunch and make sure you make a new friend, a new business partner, a new, who knows. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Thank you.